No, we're not supposed to be on yet. Oh, I'm so trying to figure this out, folks.
But I'm hearing this lady. Hi, I can see you. I can't see me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and
Great.
I think somehow the broadcast just started, so we may be going out to lots of people. I don't know.
Webcam,
That's
but you
we'll
can't
just,
share my
well,
webcam.
what's that?
Camera, yes. There I am.
Oh, good.
Gonna
So
take you.
we may be live because I just heard the little GoToWebinar lady say, "Oh, you are broadcasting now," so this may be going out. So we don't know, but this
Whoa.
is behind the curtains, improv with sound.
Improv with sound. Is it?
This is how this
Hello.
goes.
So is this actually the beginning of your summit?
It might be. It might be. You know, starting
Or it
with.
might be in like 3 minutes.
Well, yeah. Either way, I'm not sure, but this is the beginning, and it's a beginning that we are perhaps you know, illustrating by not knowing a whole bunch of stuff right from the start.
Okay, so we're
which
starting in the unknown.
couldn't be better.
Perfect place to start.
So how are you doing this morning? And let's talk real quick about the structure.
Okay, I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. You know, there's a lot of emails coming in, and a lot of people going, "Where's the link? And where's my email? And how do I do this?" And so there's a lot of you know, confusion in various places. But I think we're together. I think we're pretty ready.
Yeah.
And yeah. So
Should we just drop in and feel the feet and
yes.
feel the seat?
Yes.
Yeah, a little
Ah.
sentencing, maybe take a deep breath and you kind of slow exhalation, feel soften the sides of the tongue.
Ah, yes. Thank you.
Mm.
I'm so grateful, Bryony, that we're doing this in this way. And just in case people are watching, which apparently they are, I'll just throw out a couple of things really quick, and I will also turn off my little dinger there so that won't continue to happen. We are doing this incredible project that I've never done a webinar. I've never done a webinar before, actually, and I've certainly never done a summit. And so this has been this amazing learning process. 6 months ago, the whole idea of doing a summit wasn't even in my awareness. And so now this thing is happening, and we've got thousands, literally thousands of people that are registered for this summit. And I have no idea. One of the questions that I have right now is that I'm not sure if this webinar here is going to be limited to 501 people, the way it says here on my screen now, or if it's going to be limited to 5,000, the way the registration page suggests. So there's that level of unknown. There's a whole bunch of technical unknowns, and there's just so many unknowns. I don't know when we're going to be able to get back out and dance with each other again, you know, in public.
Right.
And I don't know what's going to happen in November, and I don't know so many things.
Right.
And so we're getting to learn how to navigate the unknown with some mastery and some joy and some resourcefulness in a way that really life has always called us to, and that we haven't always been so aware of. We've so often thought that we knew stuff because we
Right.
love stuff.
Right. And we don't know if people are watching now. We don't know how many people are watching now. We don't know who they are. So welcome to all the people. Welcome to the Your Music, Your Way Summit that Daniel has put together. Daniel, welcome to your own summit. You've
Thank you.
It's beginning now. You've had the idea.
It's happening.
It's
Woo!
happening. I'm watching it.
Right
I
here
feel
in
like,
my living room with the fun little curtain behind me.
yeah. I feel like I should improvise you a welcome to your summit song. Would that be?
Couldn't be beat. That could not be beat.
Welcome to your own symposium, Daniel. You did it. You had a dream, and now here we all are. welcome, all watchers, listeners, sheltering in place. We are in the unknown together. Blessed is improvisation. I hold this art form as sacred. Daniel, you love it so much. You put together a symposium for us. And here we are beginning now today.
Oh, you rock.
You
That
are welcome.
was
I'm so
awesome.
delighted that you're doing this. I'm just going to put my earphones in because I think my neighbors are chopping wood outside at this particular. This is perfect. So Daniel, I mean, should we start? Should we jump in?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm here to interview you for your opening presentation. New hardware. I'm sorry. Yes. Yes. So Daniel, you obviously love improvisation. So what does it mean to you, and why a symposium, and why now?
Uh, well, uh, I would like to sort of go deep on that because it's time to go deep. And the truth for me right now is that this very thing that is happening right now, not only in my life, but in all of our lives, is a moment for us, I think, as humans to really take stock and really explore who we really are. And because I really think that all the stuff that we're seeing is somehow or other a reflection of what we have created together. And I think it's possible for us because we see these YouTube videos of amazing things that people do. We've been hearing just in the last few days songs that groups of musicians have sung, and that using the technology that we have, that are presenting amazingly beautiful music that could only happen literally in the last couple of 3 years. And people riding bicycles down mountain tops at 20 miles an hour when there's cliffs on, there's like on either side. I'm like, humans are amazing. We're amazing beings, and our potential is so far beyond what we normally think. And I think it's time for us to dig down and find what that is. And I have been fascinated with the idea of improvisation since I was a child. I started on piano at 4, and I remember one of the big experiences that has affected me a lot throughout my life is, like, my parents would call me out, and when they used to have bridge parties, and they have a bunch of people come over and play bridge, and they'd say, Scott, my first name is Scott, and they'd say, Scott, come in and go in there and play one of your pieces that you've been working on. And so I would go in and I'd play this little Bach 3-part invention or something at 6, and then I'd go back and they would applaud. And I felt very uncomfortable with that applause. And I'm not quite sure why. I've wondered that a lot over the years. And part of it, I think ultimately, it feels to me like I didn't deserve the credit. It was something else that deserved the credit for the music that I had just played. Maybe I deserved the credit for doing my practice or something that my mom wanted me to do, and that sort of thing. But somehow it wasn't me that was actually doing it. And so a combination of my performance anxiety and this sort of shyness around wanting to take credit for things that didn't quite feel appropriate, and also my deep appreciation for people like Keith Jarrett and jazz musicians who seem to be able to just sit down and do amazing things off the cuff. And so this has been a huge issue. This whole idea of improvising has been a huge issue throughout my life. And in the last 20 years or so, I've dug in and learned a lot. I was in an improv theater group called Playback Theater for many years, and learned a lot about just having to step forward and honor somebody's story that they just told on stage off the cuff, and work with a team of people who had been practicing this. And sometimes you have to step forward, and like today, and just start talking. You don't know what you're going to say until your mouth opens and something comes through. And that ability to be able to step into any given moment and to navigate it with some level of confidence and gratitude and appreciation and creativity is a profoundly valuable skill, especially now, probably especially forever. It's always been available and necessary to some degree. So that's kind of the broad backstory of why I have come to share this kind of work.
Mm. And is this so like who are you for people that, like, do we all know you, or are you new to some people? Like you're this dude in a orange
I'm
in an
some
orange thing with a curtain behind you. Like who's Daniel? Who's
who are you? Who? um, well, that's funny that you ask, because I think that there are three foundational questions that we are called to ask in this life. And the more I sort of run these three questions, this sort of really just occurred to me in this way in the last few months. To be alive means to ask these three questions, I think. The first one is, what's happening? What's going on? So we perceive, even sort of small multicellular bacteria perceive the world. We've got these abilities to notice what's going on out there and then to somehow respond to it. And so I think the first question is, what is happening now? What's going on? I look around, I see this screen in front of me, I see these lights, I see this, this environment around me, and that's an important part of how I can proceed. Whoever I am. And then that second question is, who am I now? And so that question is actually much more than, am I a musician? I'm a musician. My name is Scott Daniel Barber. I have this set of parents and this set of friends and these abilities. Those are traits of the thing that our perception thinks we are. And this summit and my work is really about digging down and who am I really in this moment? I'm someone who wants to share something. I'm someone who's perceiving that there's a whole bunch of people watching me talk right now and curious what I'm saying. I'm aware that there's a bird on a tree right in front of me here. There's deer around. There's life. There's tall standing trees, beautifulness around. There's a lot going on here that usually I'm not aware of because I'm so wrapped up in my thoughts and stuff. So who am I now? And I guess for the more maybe practical purposes of answering that question, I've been a musician to one degree or other all my life. I was a social worker for a while. I've had a lot of passion for social justice, trying to figure out how to heal a lot of the wounds that we are continuing to experience in this world, the ways that we are separated from each other. I became a researcher for many years to try to figure out the systemic stuff that was going on. So when I was in social work, I saw this revolving door of people coming in, and we would treat them for a while, and then they would go back out to the same environment that created the problems in the first place, and then we would see them again. And so I did quantitative statistics and research design for several years in the 80s, and helped other people with their research. So I learned a lot about quantitative analysis of data. And then I studied global systems. I studied global food systems, and to try to figure out what is causing the maldistribution of food. We have plenty of food, but why is it so many people don't have access to it? And I studied social movements and revolutions. How do political systems form, and how do they evolve and shift? And what I came to the conclusion in my PhD studies in Chapel Hill, that the really positive stuff happens in the third world, in the developing world, not when decision makers at the top say, we need to do this thing because it will be better. It really happens, the sustainable kinds of change that happens is when a bunch of women get together and buy a cow. And then they began making a little bit of money with the milk that they sell. And then they begin to build community. And then they begin to see what needs to be done next. And then they do that, and they do it together, and they do it with shared mind. And that's when the really positive kinds of change happen, probably everywhere, I suspect. And so I ended up leaving the quantitative statistics and research world, and began doing videos to tell the stories of the cool stuff that's happening at the grassroots. And I did that for 15 years. It was beautiful work. I worked for nonprofits in the States here, and talked to lots of people who are doing amazing work at the grassroots that you don't hear about because you don't see it on the mainstream media. And a lot of really amazing things that are going on out there. A lot of beautiful, heroic people, and we all know them, and we all are them to some degree. And then around 2000, I had a heartbreaking divorce that launched me into a deep, dark night of the soul. And so I sat down and I started playing. I just would sit down at the piano to just for my own therapy, and finding, of course, a lot of the times the sounds that I was making then were, it was like, ah, it was really just super painful. I was in deep pain for quite a while after that second divorce. But it brought me back to the piano. It brought me to this way of putting my feelings out so that they could come through and I could hear them, and it's like, yes, that's what it feels like. It's that. and and then sometimes I could work through that. I would play and I would hear it and I would go, no, it's not quite that. It's more like this. It's just confusion. It's just like, oh, why is it, and then I would play that for 15 or 20 minutes and cry and sob um, and feel my way through it. And I learned that this was a way that I could be my own caregiver. I could in this relationship with this sound making device, I could feel some level of reassurance and not aloneness and connection and appreciation and acknowledgement from this device that all it was doing was being a mirror for my feelings.
Or an instrument for your expression. Yeah.
And so I guess I'll stop there.
Well, it sounds like what I think I'm hearing is like you've had your own experience of medicine through improvised music. And you're like, oh boy, this is so simple and so profound. Kind of like, I gotta tell everybody about this. I mean, that was like 20 years ago. And so has your life been a lot about music and improvisation since then? Do you teach?
Yes. Yes. I started playing a lot more. I was spending several hours a day on the piano just for my own therapy. And one day I thought, I need to figure out some way to make some money doing this so I can justify all this time that I'm spending on the piano. And literally the next day, this is a true story, literally the next day, I got a phone call from the guy who was the founding minister of a church that I'd been going to for a few months at that time and just playing djembe in their church band. And he said that the person who had been the band leader there was leaving town. She was moving away to be with her parents, and they needed somebody to lead the band and asked if I wanted to do it. And and that was just totally, talk about miracles, the way things seem to work. And I'm still doing that job. We did a service yesterday here, and that has been a huge gift. And it's one of the ways that, a piece of data that I would share, that when we step into who we really are in the presence of what we're really here to do, it's amazing the doors that open completely miraculously and unexpectedly.
Beautiful. And just so people understand, is it a Christian church or what kind of church is it?
So it's a non-denominational church. It's called the Jubilee Community. It's in Asheville, and the underlying theology is called creation spirituality, and that is a That is a spiritual school founded by Matthew Fox, who is also, his interview is actually going to be aired at noon today. And I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching this are familiar with Matthew's work. It's profound. It reaches back. I often refer to it as the pagan roots of Christianity. It's the spiritual tradition that Jesus came up through. His pagan Jewishness, pagan just meaning the country spirituality, and he was a pagan Jew, and this is the wisdom that informed Jesus's life and his teachings, and it also incorporates Jesus's life and teachings, and it is a universal spirituality, as God is a universal presence for all of us.
Beautiful.
And, yeah.
So I've had a look through the speakers, and I am one of the speakers, and so it seems like you're exploring improvisation as applied to community life, to spiritual life, to healing, to cellular healing. There's a little science in there. There's some indigenous perspectives. Who have you invited to speak, and why? And what are some of the themes that you've been exploring in these interviews you've conducted that people are going to now explore in the week ahead?
Yeah, so there are several musicians and people who have incorporated improvisation into their art, into their musical art. Sylvia Nakash is one of the people who's in this, who I'm super excited to be sharing with you. She's an amazing musician. Chloe Goodchild is another person who brings her vocal improvisation and wisdom to this experience. Vicky Dodd, Mark Romero, Billy Jonas. There are several really amazing musical creators. Who I just actually met just recently, just very recently, and this is one of the things that's so amazing to me about this whole experience, is how these unexpected things happen. I mean, I literally I'd never heard of you until what, a week ago or so, week and a half ago. And now you're interviewing, it's like the possibilities that happen when we drop in are amazing. So there's a bunch of musicians, your vocals and your teaching that you do, I'm finding really fascinating. Really enjoyed the interview with you. So musicians, there are scientists. John Stuart Reed is someone who inspired me at a conference. I met him 15 years ago at a conference in Santa Fe, and we had a really interesting conversation that went on for about 30 minutes before he was going to be doing a presentation that afternoon. I was just at his booth, and he had one of these devices that he called a cymoscope, where it had a microphone attached to it, and there was this little membrane in there with fine sand or particles of some sort on it, and you could speak into this microphone and the sand would like organize itself. You go and into these mandala kind of shapes. It's fascinating.
Wow.
And it's super cool. And he called it the microscope of the audio realm. He said, before the regular microscope, we had no idea that there was this world going on at the microscopic level. We just hadn't seen it, so we had no idea. And he said, this is something that can open our awareness up to the fact that sound is doing stuff out there. It's moving matter, literally. And so to be aware of the power of sound is a profound. I won't tell you. There's a story that he told that was just completely fascinating. I'll just encourage you to watch his interview.
What's his name again?
John Stuart Reed.
John Stuart Reed. All right.
I'm not sure exactly the day. I think it's Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not sure exactly right now.
We can look on the.
You can look on the schedule page. There's a schedule page, and I encourage you to keep your emails. We'll have the schedule page on it. Every one of the emails that we send out will have that schedule page on it.
Okay.
And there are activists. There are old friends of mine that I knew back from my activist days in the 90s, Gary Phillips, Carrie Bolton, Matthew Fox is an activist, and people who below the radar do really powerful work of community building and connecting and consciousness raising so that we can create the world that we want to create. We can bring our consciousness and our thoughts and our actions and our prayers and our behaviors in a way that makes the difference that we make. We make a difference in the world regardless. The question isn't, do we make a difference? The question is, what difference are we making? Our very existence makes a difference. And so the question is, what difference do we want to make? And how can we align ourselves with those visions and desires? And let's see. Yeah, ritual leaders. Cater Brown is a teacher of mine who has, his presence in my life has been profound. I've done a couple of vision quests with Cater, and I've staffed a bunch of his vision quests over the last several years, and I've done a lot of men's work with him and the community that he has developed, has built over the years. Amazing teacher. And Onye Onyemichi is an amazing, super fun guy and an incredible spiritual teacher as well, who I also met at the conference in Santa Fe, and we used to do a lot of drumming together. And so I loved going to those conferences for a lot of reasons, but then whenever Onye was doing his sessions, I was like there on the dune and we're rocking out. And so he's going to be here later this week. And so there's just a lot of really interesting people that I think you'll enjoy checking out.
It's so great to hear all that, Daniel. And I'm getting, I mean, obviously you had no idea when you were planning it that you'd be launching, in Britain here, we're now in the 3rd week of lockdown. And who knows how long that's going to go on for. I think people are listening from all around the world and people are in different positions, so you're reaching us right here in this kind of void time of being at home and unknown. And we're all quite available to, I've just, your symposium is my plan for my evenings this week. You come on at like 3 and 5 p.m. every afternoon and evening in Britain, and then off we go. It's like, okay, I'm going to be hanging out on this thing. But as I'm hearing this, all these people, I'm thinking, God, how fun would it be for us actually to get together? And maybe this is a precursor for maybe next year we'll do it in person and we'll all come to North Carolina. Because I think improvisation.
Or we can come to England.
We can come to England, or we can do it, because improvisation is, Wales, you can all come here. I've been improvising since I was a kid, but in the music culture of my family and my teens and even my 20s, improvisation was not a thing. I didn't discover it till I was in India, and I had to go to this kooky guy in France for teaching, and then I went to America where people like Bobby McFerrin and Rhiannon were pioneering this art form, just 3 or 4 decades ago. So I know improvisation is ancient, but it's also burgeoning, it's kind of blossoming in culture right now. And now I teach it, and most of the people that I'm teaching are trying it for the very first time. So I feel like you're part of something that's emerging in the field, something that's emerging in consciousness, and you're being a host, and you're bringing leaders in this field together, and who knows what might come from this.
Who knows? This is one of the things that I find so fascinating about this, is that as I have gone through my various experiences trying to make a difference in the world, the activism and the social work and the quantitative research and the video production and storytelling and the music, it seems to me that the way that we humans can begin to move in the direction of having a better relationship with each other and with the planet is to become who we are, to really become who we are, and to learn how to be a force that is engaging, to learn how to be a force that we love being with each other. We want to be with each other. We love being with each other, and we love being outside, and we love being with the trees, and we love seeing the deer, and we love that there are polar bears, and we love that there are tigers, and we want to do whatever we can to make it possible for all the beings that we share this home with to flourish and to thrive. And to me, there's not a mental strategy that, you know, it seems like we have worked our brains to the point to where the brains, that's not really the level at which the solutions arrive. You know, Einstein's, you know, the solution isn't going to come at the level that the problem was created. It comes from a deeper place. And to me, sound is a doorway into that deeper place that can allow us to really step into who we really are. I'd like to do actually a little bit of a sharing of how I see this in a way that might step into that deeper place. And I'm not quite sure how this is going to work. I've got some PowerPoint that I'd like to include in this, and I think it's just a matter of sharing this, and then I'm going to need to go over here, and you're just going to see some behind the scenes stuff for a second. And I'm going to, you'll just see, let's see, how can I do this so that you're just seeing the slides itself? Use the slideshow. Okay. I'm going to go back. This is the way improvised webinars look. So getting to the roots of reality involves really this question of the fact that I think the most essential task, the most essential skill we can possibly learn as humans is to learn to navigate the unknown masterfully. And then when we don't do this well, we become victims of our circumstances. And we fall prey to old habits and generational patterns that were formed long before in another time. And when this happens, we find ourselves frustrated often and discouraged and kind of trapped in ways that make it difficult for us to emerge. And if this goes unaddressed for too long, we can end up getting discouraged or bored or even frightened, and when we're not in the flow of things. And right now I'm having to actually pull this up from memory because in order for you to just see these slides, there's no script here, so I'm going to kind of float my way through this. But we feel ourselves now, we're literally trapped in our homes because we don't seem to have our own capacity to realize that our immune systems can probably take care of a lot of this stuff. But because we don't know that, we're having to protect ourselves from each other, which isn't really the ultimate solution, is it? But then when we are really connected to our ability to navigate the unknown with mastery and confidence and ease, we literally plug into the essential characteristic and the blessings of living. We step into this way of being that provides us with our joy and our creativity and our flexibility. And we're obviously at a very unique moment in history, and it's not really for just the reasons that you may be thinking right now. We've known for about 100 years from now, we've known for about 100 years now intellectually that reality is essentially comprised of a bunch of energy and matter that's trading places with each other probabilistically. And so the future is fundamentally unknowable. It's fundamentally unknowable, unpredictable. And the other thing that we've been learning through biochemistry is that the thing that makes you unique is literally the way you perceive the world. So I want to say that again. The way that you, whoever is listening to this in this moment, the way that you perceive the world is literally the only thing that makes you unique. Everything else is a creation of our perceptions, which is part of how you see the world. And so the question becomes, how can we function and adapt and get all our various needs for security and connection and fulfillment met when everything that we know or that we think we know always leads to a whole bunch of other things that we don't? And how can we all share and benefit from each other's precious and unique gifts so that we can make the difference that each and all want to make in the world. And so I think it helps to have a compass that can bring us back, that can ground us in a way that can help us determine who we are and how to proceed with those very weird questions, because it's just a weird situation, isn't it? Not only the coronavirus situation, but this weird quantum reality that we actually intellectually know that we live in. And now we're starting to feel it more. So what's the compass that can guide us? And I think it comes down to three foundational questions. One is, what is happening now? What is going on? What is happening in my experience? What's happening in my world? How can I perceive what is happening more deeply so that I can assess things and know something reliable that I can count on? And then the second question is, who am I now? Who am I? Am I someone who is open and curious and paying attention? Am I someone who's frightened right now? Am I someone who is confused right now? Who am I in this moment, in each moment? And then what do I do now? Do I keep listening? Do I say something? Do I write a song? Do I say something to my partner? Do I create a new, what do I do? What do I do to respond to the current situation? And then once I do something, it matters. And so now what's happening? What happens as a result? If I decide to play this note, then all of a sudden the next thing is like, oh, what's happening now? I'm hearing these sounds, right? So everything changed, right? So it's this continuing cycle that floats through moment to moment to moment. And I have fleshed all this out into what I call the holy trinity of improv. And so all of you Catholics or recovering Catholics or people who are connected to that, I invite your grace and forgiveness of any way that this may seem inappropriate, but it just came to me and that's what I've been calling it. And basically it boils down to learning how to take the energies that are coming through us and to process it in such a way that I can be conscious about the things that I create from here. And what does sound have to do with all of this? Well, Hans Jenny says that the more we look at these things, the more we look at this stuff, the more we realize that sound is the creative principle, and then it must be regarded as primordial. And we know this from so many religious traditions, right? And creation stories. And God said, and in the beginning,
was the word.
Yes, yes. And in one tradition, in the beginning was Brahman, with whom was the word. And in another tradition, in the center of the universe, she sang. This idea of sound being the thing that initiates creation is universal and kind of always has been. And Hans Jenny also said that the power to originate things, he said that no other singular phenomenon has the ability to initiate things and to originate things, but that power is inherent in tone, that tone and sound originates things. So when I'm talking about using sound as an improvisational tool, I'm talking about something that is basically allowing each of us, there's none of us that doesn't have this access, right, to this universal primordial creative energy. We all have it. We all have it through our voices, and we can have it through instruments.
Do you really think that, Daniel? I mean, what about the people who say, oh no, but not me, but I can't sing or I can't play an instrument? Or...
Yeah, well, it's one thing to just sort of tell them that that's not true. but it's another thing to really just notice what happens. You know, just notice what happens, right? I just changed something. You know, that changed something. And there's nobody on the planet that can't access some level of sound making capacity. Maybe it's just their voice. Maybe it's just in the way they speak. But none of us speaks like this. We all sing when we talk, don't we? You
Most
know,
people. But everybody can, yeah, everybody can do something. It's like these old folk sessions in the pub when I was growing up, you know, and the musicians would be playing, and some people would also bring their fiddle along, and some people would also sing along. Some people were just tapping the table, some people were playing spoons, but like everybody's got something.
Yeah, everybody's got something. And you know, one of the things that really took me years and years and years to get over is this idea that I needed to sound like Keith Jarrett or Chick Corea on the piano. You know, it's like, oh, I can't do that. And then I would sit and try to improvise, but whatever I would play, you know, even if it was something that was kind of okay, it didn't sound like Chick Corea, and I wanted to sound like Chick Corea. And the point that I finally had to come around to came from a book written by a guy named Kenny Werner, who is, and I'll just go ahead and shut this off because I think that's kind of enough of the background for now. But let's see here, come back to here. It's that the world doesn't need another Chick Corea. You know, what the world needs is me. From my standpoint, you know, it's like what I have to bring is me. And I didn't even know what that was for a long time. Even after I started into this process 20 years ago, I didn't really know what that was. I'm still finding out. I didn't know 6 months ago that me was about bringing a summit to bear. You know, I didn't know that. And so it's this continual process of discovery and listening. So the Holy Trinity of improv, I should say this part, in terms of as a response to those three foundational questions, what is happening now? It involves listening. It involves paying attention, sometimes really, really, really deeply, and sometimes more deeply than we're comfortable with. Because maybe sometimes it means listening to the parts of myself that I don't like, that I'm not real happy about, I'm not real proud of. And listening so that I can pay deep attention to the parts of myself that may be crying out in pain or crying out in fear. And this is one of the things that Jerry Donahue has brought to my life. Jerry is also in the summit, and I really encourage you to listen to Jerry's interview, because what he does is really deep work around what he calls inner presence work. And it comes out of Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication techniques, where we can learn how to listen without judgment, and to just accept and listen. You know, that listening, paying attention to what's going on is not about trying to change it or fix it, but it's about paying attention to it and acknowledging that it exists. And we can take that to many different levels, including our own introspection and our own self-reflection. And being able to be compassionate with the parts of ourselves that may be wounded and that may act out in our lives in ways that can be damaging, not only to ourselves, but to the people that we love, the people that are around us. And so the answer to that is to be compassionate with those parts of ourselves that need attention and need some care and need some compassion. Because what all of us really want is to love and be loved, and to be acknowledged for existing. And we have been so wounded in so many different kinds of ways. And I don't even remember what your last question was now.
Well, I guess as I'm hearing you speak, I'm starting to sort of weave it all together. I'm thinking, okay, what if we take everything Daniel's saying and kind of make a world out of it? What do we have? You know, I'm struck by what you're saying about we don't necessarily even know ourselves, but music sends us home to ourselves, right? There's no two faces the same, no two voices the same, and we have to learn. And you know, sure, when we're all 5 and playing living in a jungle, living in a jungle, living in a jungle, you know, then our musical styles are the same. But once we get into our musical adulthood, there's no two people play instruments the same, really, when you really listen, and particularly when we're improvising. Everybody has their own kind of sound. And if you think about it, we don't typically have initiation. We don't typically have a coherent village. We don't get that much reflection. We don't get, Daniel, I see you. You know, I see you there with your sincere eyes and your orange shirt, doing your best to say, hey, world, I really believe improvisation is important, and I really believe it offers us something. You're trying your hardest to elevate the voices that live this and share this. You kind of, yeah, I see you. I see, and we don't get that much, you know. So it's like improvisation leads us home to the moment, leads us home to listening to each other, leads us home to our song, our sound, sharing it, giving it, and receiving it from one another, reflecting it back and saying, oh yeah, I see you, and I add a bass line, or I see you and I add a harmony, and here we go, and we've got a village.
Yeah.
So it feels like, as I hear you saying, you know, it feels like you want individuals to thrive, you want communities to thrive, you want the world to thrive through coming into the present moment, seeing where are we, who are we, what now, okay, now what we got, singing our song, playing our tune, not being so hung up on perfection, but allowing ourselves to be creative and expressive and connect with one another. And that it's like the consequence of that is like the world becomes a better place somehow. I mean, is that the dream in your heart? What's the dream in your heart?
Oh my God. To have a conversation like this, Bryony. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to learn how to listen and to learn how to be authentic and real, and then to have the courage to share who we are without worrying so much about how it may be perceived. And without trying to control other people's reactions. I think a lot of these ideas about I'm not a musician and I'm not a creative person come from this just terror of being perceived as inadequate in some way or other. And that is just not, you know, um, those things that we learned around that are mistaken impressions, and it's maybe even some unkind teachers and teaching, or just the way that humans learned to try to raise children in a way that they would be safe. And so teaching them to be protective so that they won't be humiliated, or, don't do this so that you won't be put in the corner or whatever. There's all these different ways that we have experienced shame or unkindness, and it's natural to try to protect ourselves from that. And the truth is that we can step into those places, and it's those levels of behavior when it's coming from a wounded place, when it's coming from a protective place. We don't we so much of our internal energy has been used in that protection that we don't have that energy in order to bring all of who we are forward. And when we can bring all of who we are forward, then we get to really offer who we are. I know that there's probably people who may think this is ridiculous, and it's like, I can't worry about that. That's none of my business.
I don't know. I think I don't know what the listeners. I think we feel. I had a job researching joy and play internationally for years, and one of my research thoughts was like, I think we have two parts of us. I think we have a casing that's like the mask we wear that try and helps us be kind of socially and professionally successful. And then we have the creature that sings and dances and has little goofy odd things about it and messes up sometimes and feels ashamed and loves and we can't really love the casing like we love the creature. And it's the biggest delight when we get to see each other's creatures. But of course, that's the bit that feels most vulnerable. So we cover it up. And I think, there's such a long history in European culture of suppressing the dance and suppressing the song. And you know, and there's anthropological text of when we went and colonized and saw people in Africa singing and dancing, we called them savages for it, you know, and boys in England were whipped if their fathers saw them singing, saw them dancing. And where did we get those ideas? You know, this goes back really a long way. Yeah. So we're recovering from something pretty deep and pretty long term here.
We are. We are. It's deep. It's deep. It's deep. It's deep. I just found out in the last 15 years or so, my dad told me this story. One of my girlfriends years ago said, why don't you write to your parents and ask them to tell you some stories of their childhood that they haven't told you? And Dad wrote me and told me this story, and it turns out that I had no idea I was going to tell this story, but I'm really glad for the opportunity because I think it touches on what you're saying. I found out that I won't go into the details, but I found out that my great grandfather, my dad's mother's father, murdered a black man in cold blood in rural East Texas. And there was a sheriff in that county where a bunch of my ancestors over the last 3 or 4 generations moved to 100 years, roughly a little over 100 years ago, 115 years ago or so. And there was a sheriff in that county who was apparently this big law and order kind of guy. Bonnie and Clyde apparently were afraid to go to this county because this guy would nab them. And he tracked down my grandfather. He tracked down, it was a horrible murder, actually. And he tracked him down and put him on trial. And this was in around 1940. And he went on trial, and it ended in a hung jury. And they never retried him. And so he basically, you know, got away with it as many people did. That kind of thing for decades and decades and hundreds of years. So this is deep, and it's deeply challenging. And actually the whole the reason I went into social work when I was a teenager is because I got really passionate about racial justice because of some experiences that I had in high school. Really good experiences that I had connecting with young kids. We created a thing called Camp Friendship through my church in Fort Worth, and we brought together kids from across the tracks and kids from places that and economies and situations where they would not be able to go to summer camp. And so we created those opportunities for some of them, and we had wonderful times. We had really, really wonderful times with those people, and it was an eye-opening experience to me. And so that's that passion for, you know, wanting to bring us together, us being all of us together, put me in social work, and it put me into the larger systems analysis thing, and it put me into the video production thing, and it put me into the music. It brought me into this way of how can we do this, y'all? How can we do this in a way that actually we're engaging all of our energies instead of just having a couple people who are supposed to lead a charge, you know, and you know, that's never really worked globally. It's never revolutions usually end up with different people in power, but the same system. So a real revolution, a real transformation of human possibility involves all of us. And all of us coming to the table and bringing our gifts and sharing with each other and learning from each other, so that we can, in partnership with trees and in partnership with deer and bird, learn to be together and to listen to each other's songs.
Be together and listen to each other's songs. I just want to take care of everyone's nervous systems for a minute. Let's all feel our feet, feel our seat. Let's take a deep breath and kind of, soften the tongue a little, widen the eyes to owl eyes, because that was an intense story right there. and brings up pain, I think, for us. And thank you for sharing. And, you know, there's one of the many thinkers I'm really influenced by is a guy in Portugal, a German in Portugal called Dieter Doom. And he says, we're in a 5,000-year matrix of violence and trauma and fear. The violence creates the trauma, and the trauma we feel fear. In our fear, we're violent, and on it goes. And you can almost trace any lineage, an American lineage, a European lineage, a colonial lineage, it just keeps going back and back, and it goes back to the Normans, and it goes back to the Romans, and it goes back to, you know, and it just goes on, and it's got your grandfather in it, and it's got my grandfather in it, and it's, you know, we're all connected to this. And I think we try not to really go near that stuff because it's charged, but actually when we can go in and acknowledge and witness, and then say, what do we have to do to find peace? What do we have to do to heal? What do we have to do to reconnect with ourselves, our own indigeneity, our own emotions, our own bodies, voices, rhythm, community, so that we're nourished, and so that we're stepping out of what Dieter called the violence matrix and start stepping into what he calls the sacred matrix. So that we're not perpetuating racism, colonialism, systemic violence that we're still, you know, quite a part of today. And there's a lot of reimagining to do in the world. And I think it comes back to your, you know, your cycle. There's, you know, there's a research methodology called action research that's very similar. It's just like, okay, like, where are we? Who am I? What next? How did that go? Revisit, reimagine, and these circles, and through it, we have some potential to transform.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, you are so awesome. That was
You're
such a,
so
that resonates so powerfully. I feel like I feel heard, and I feel like I'm in a partnership with possibility here.
in a partnership with possibility.
Yeah.
And what a way to see life, not stuck in a shitty system that we hate, but in a partnership with possibility, and where we can come together with our heart, with our drum, and say, okay, what's broken? What are we moving away from? What's beautiful? What's calling us? What should we work together and move towards?
Yeah.
Daniel, I'm aware that time is towards the end, and you might have something to give. I mean, you're giving a symposium, but do you have, because we've all, I don't know, is there a thing that you want to talk to?
Yes, I would love to connect with anyone who is listening that would like to explore some of my approach to this. And I was literally this morning, like, putting together this whole summit has been such a whoa kind of experience. It's like getting, 4 hours of sleep for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and and it's been totally amazing in so many ways, and I'm totally loving it. And so please, I appreciate your grace as we make this up and as we improvise this along. But I think we're in pretty good shape for the most part in terms of the summit itself. So I just wanted to say that. And I hope that you enjoy. Please plug in where there's opportunities to comment and all that kind of stuff. In order to, for my part, that was all to say that I didn't even really know what I was going to be offering myself until like 30 minutes before we aired. But what I want to do is that I want to offer a group program for folks. And I have set up a webinar for 3 weeks from today. So 6, what's that, 27th of 28th, 27th of April at 10 o'clock in the morning, where I will go into more detail about listen, and the second process, who am I, is about feeling deeply, listening carefully, what's happening now, and then who am I now, to feel deeply, to really go in and feel deeply. And then what do I do now is to play it out, to play something, to do something, to move your body, to say something, to play it out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about more about the Holy Trinity of improv in that webinar. And I'm also going to offer some bonuses on that webinar. I've got one that I came up with a while back that it's fun. It's 6 ways that you're choking your creativity. And there's the little icon on my website with the image of Bob Newhart saying, "Stop it." And not exactly probably the most efficient way of moving through the process, but there you go. And I'm going to offer a way to think about, if you're interested in this, to learn how to play the piano in all 12 keys, which I can show you in an hour. So literally in an hour, whether you've seen a piano before or not, you can be literally improvising on the piano in any key in an hour.
Are we going to do all this on the 27th?
All that on the 20th. Well, that will be one of the bonuses if you sign up for that webinar.
Okay.
Yeah. And
is
another
this your
bonus,
free gift, or do we have to pay for that, or what's the offer?
No, that'll be free.
Wow.
If you do the webinar, that'll be one of the freebies on the webinar. So
Cool.
so what I'm offering today is the webinar. And so yeah, on that webinar you'll get the 6 ways you're choking your creativity, and just 6 ideas that may be a little bit unexpected. One of which is like, stop trying to learn. And a couple of others, stop trying to play music, and a few others. And
how do we sign up for that?
So there will be a link right below this video where you can register for that webinar.
Okay. And if people are watching live now?
Yeah, the people that are watching live now, I'm not sure if it'll be available right now or not. It may be there right now, but you may just come back in a couple of hours. I know it'll be up in a couple of hours. One of the other things that I'm going to offer is for people who may be wanting to play the piano, but they don't have one, is I'm going to give a few tips on maybe a keyboard that you could go out and buy, that you could do that. And I think there's another freebie that I'm forgetting right now, but I'm just going to be.
That's a lot of freebies. You're giving a lot. Well, thank you.
I'm just
so much.
Like, I want this to go out, right? It's so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and good luck with this week. And it's a lot of hats for you to wear. You've been really on the behind the scenes working so hard to put this together, and now I guess you're still behind the scenes working hard to get it on our screens this week. So thank you so much. And it's a real gift to culture, I would say. It's a gift to the improv community. May it expand the improv community. You're connecting people, and thank you. Do you have any final? I think we're in our last minute of the hour. Do you have any final?
Yeah, I just want to, and I don't think, and this is again, I don't think that the webinar will actually shut off right at 11. I think that's just a schedule.
Okay.
I don't think it actually.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I would say that I would just want to encourage people to keep checking your emails. We're going to send out an email every day that will have links to the speakers for that day, and it will also have a link to the schedule page, so that you can just see what's happening throughout the week. Most all of the speakers have a gift that they're offering, and those gifts will be on the speakers' pages. And I really want to try to create a way to build community among the attendees of this thing. The last time I looked, we had about 3,600. We had somewhere between 3,600 and 3,700 people registered for this. I don't know what it looks like now and where it will get, but I would love to find some ways of building community, and I haven't really built a platform for that just yet. And so I'm going to think about that, and I'll have an update on that in tomorrow's email. And I encourage every one of you to watch my interview with Bryony Greenhill, because it's just rocking. So
we had a lot of fun. I think I'm blushing. Yeah. It was fun.
So
it's just warm. It's getting hot.
Don't want to miss that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think all the speeches stay up, or all the interviews stay up for 3 days. Is that right? Yeah. So we don't have to, if we miss it at the actual time, and some of them are coming online at the same time. So we don't have to be in our seats at 3 p.m. GMT or whatever. We just, and then they're on for 3 days, and we can come and dip in and listen to what we want to. And then if it gets to the end of the week and we've missed things, and then we want to keep listening, then we can pay to take things with us for good, right? And
Yeah, and you don't even have to wait to the end of the week to pay to take things for good. You can just go,
okay.
like, I know I'm going to want this. And one of the reasons to go ahead and do that now is because the price through tomorrow night at midnight Eastern, midnight Tuesday Eastern time, the price is $79.
Which is 5 a.m. Wednesday morning British time.
5 a.m. Wednesday morning British time, or British summertime, as I
British summertime, BST, yeah.
Yes. Is it summer in Britain already?
It's summertime. Our clock's just changed, so
Summer,
we're now on. It's
summer
GMT in the winter, and it's BST
Okay,
from
good.
spring to fall.
We
So
Americans,
until
there's so much we don't understand over here. But so that's the thing. And then after 5 o'clock British summertime tomorrow, the price will go up to $149. So it almost doubles after tomorrow night. So if you think you're probably going to want it, it's best to go ahead and do that now. And then if you're not so sure and you want to wait some more, it'll be 149 through the Sunday night, through the rest of the summit. And then after the summit, it will go on up to 199. So there's a couple of different levels there.
okay.
And there was something else I wanted to say. All of the interviews after today, all of the interviews will go up at 10 at the time that this one started, and everybody for that day will go up at 10 at the same time, so that you can just decide what order you want to watch them in that day. And they'll be up for 3 days.
I think it's going to be so interesting for those of us who, don't read books anymore and listen to things on Audible. And it's nice to hear things as conversations. Daniel's a fun interviewer.
Thank
nice to hear things as conversations, and get to the kind of essence of what people are about in this world. And this world of music and healing and spirituality and paradigm shift, I would say.
It's time.
It's really time.
Thank you,
Cheers,
Brian.
Cheers, Daniel. We did a thing. Can you do this? Like, you can high five across 2 screens. If you like, can you move your?
Oh, you're on the wrong side. You're going the wrong direction.
Shit, like that way.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't work. Okay. Love it. Have a great time, everyone. Enjoy. Welcome to the summit, to the symposium. Should we call it a summit or a symposium?
Summit. And you can call it whatever you want.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Brian. This was fun.
Cheers, Daniel. Well done. Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.